Okay, everyone, this is kind of our first podcast episode. Jackie and I have been chomping at the bit to get this recorded, and this is the introduction to Holy Harlot. I'm a Holy Harlot, so is Jackie. Jackie is so much more. She is a sacred embodiment coach. She's been doing this for years, and she's a dear sister priestess of mine. Jackie, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hello. It's so wonderful to be here. I'm so happy we're doing this. Oh, yeah, I have been on such a journey with this work, and I'm so excited to dig in with you and to share our wisdom and see what else comes up. Because I know that you and I, our whole purpose in doing this is because we want to awaken this in all women.
Yeah,
The ways it's been awakened in
absolutely.
us, the downloads we get, like all the wisdom from our wombs and from spirit that comes through. We just want to create more and more ways for women to connect and receive this with us.
Yeah, and I must say that Jackie reached out to me and we were working together, and then Jackie has worked on me, and she has been such a big inspiration for me in this coming back home to the wisdom of the woman, to the wisdom of the womb. You really sparked that light within me, and you've introduced me to so much information, to so much care. It really did feel like an initiation that our friendship and how this has grown. So I'm super glad that you are here with me.
Oh, I love that. And I think this is how it is with women. Like we come into each other's lives at the perfect time, and there's this beautiful weaving of the magic we wake up in each other.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's formal, like you and I did sessions and we had formal initiations. And then there's everything in between of just when it's time, and that's my hope for everyone who hears this, is that whatever we talk about, whatever comes up, it's all meant to initiate and awaken. And it can really be that easy.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that that's what I'm really stepping into is just the ease in all of this, and we're definitely going to talk more about this. But the idea that some of us become addicted to what's wrong with me, right? Like, how can I seek more healing? This is wrong. This is wrong. This is wrong. And I feel like maybe you'll agree, the sacred embodiment is like, what's right with you? What's already right with you?
Completely. Completely. And, as I was preparing for us to talk about this, I started kind of going through my catalog of all of my teachers and the different things that they have brought out in me. And one of my favorite things that was ever said was, how much pleasure can you find in the really uncomfortable moments? Like when you're dealing with something that is wrong or dysfunctioning or really plaguing you, like, is there any pleasure to be found in it? You just got curious for like, how much pleasure can I take in the fact that I feel like absolute crap right now?
Yeah.
Or in the fact that I'm being forced to rest, or that things are total chaos? Is there any pleasure? Is there any enjoyment to be found?
Yeah.
And I've been working with that concept for a couple of years now. That really changes my experience of life
Yeah.
because the roller coaster is inherent, right? We're feminine, we're cyclical, we're going on this up and down ride all the time. And it's not just going to feel like a joyride the whole time, but our insistence on it feeling pleasurable, like that's something we can actually decide and jump on board with.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I was reading one of Gina Tomhauser's books recently, and she made it so clear, and to your point, that pleasure is not like, ha ha, ha, I'm just enjoying myself. This is so, it's like, am I finding pleasure in this drama that's playing out between me and my lover? Because the answer is probably yes, and that's the PowerPoint. You're like, oh, I'm not a victim. I'm actually enjoying a piece of this. So it's either keep going or decide to find something else more pleasurable.
Yeah, and in the moment, let it be as pleasurable as it can be. Like kind of laugh at yourself. Be like, oh, I'm perpetuating this. I'm choosing this.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
engaging in this. There's something I'm getting out of this. And then in the next moment, do I want to choose something
Hmm.
else? And yesterday, a mutual connection of ours, I was texting with her
Hmm.
and she's like really coming into the pleasure of life and she's like deciding like, oh, I'm gonna really like look for pleasure in my day.
Mm.
I was like, I'm gonna ask her, I'm like, okay, how's the pleasure of the day going so far? Give me the pleasure update.
Yeah.
And then we proceeded to have this text conversation about how pleasurable every moment of our day had been so far. And I just had this moment of what would friendships be like if that's how we interacted with each other? If there was more of a, hey, tell me what's been pleasurable so far today, or when we're bitching and complaining like it's a bad day, and it's like, okay, it can be a bad day, and like, where's the pleasure going to come from next?
Yeah. Or tell me how bad it was. Like, let's like get into the juiciness because that's still pleasurable, right? Um, I I think that this sisterhood idea that you're really honing in on has been pivotal for me this past year, especially with the development of my business. It's like, no, I can make those connections where women genuinely are like, girl, tell me the deeds. What's going on? Like, but how do you feel? What was that like for your body? Like, what was that experience? And processing out loud is something that I didn't allow myself to do for so long because I was so trying to be the healer for everyone. And then I didn't have a healer. I didn't have another woman in front of me being like, girl, let me be the border to your river for a little while. And it's been like invigorating.
How beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, we need that.
We do.
You're right. The places where you feel like it's okay to show that you're suffering, like, are you even allowed to admit it? And I think that's, especially for those of us who are healers, helpers of service, mothers too. Like,
Yeah.
are you allowed to admit that you're suffering
Yeah.
and that that's part of the pleasure spectrum, right?
Right. So true.
Because however much you let yourself be in the suffering and in the hardship, right on the other end of the spectrum is how much you'll enjoy and how much pleasure you can have. So we don't really get to cut it off.
Right.
Like, oh, I'm going to not suffer a whole bunch, but I'm going to have ecstatic bliss and joy. It's like, however much you're willing to go into your uncomfortable parts and be messy and disgusting and, like
Yeah.
real underbelly of life, like, can you go in there
That Venus retrograde stuff.
totally and be in the yuck of it and know that like the deeper you go into that, you will pop out the other side. And then when it's time for bliss and joy and like really celebrating, you can actually celebrate.
Yeah.
Feel it fully.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I have a few questions prepared for you just because you have such a wealth of knowledge. Ready to get into it?
Yes, but first, can we do some breath?
Oh, yes. Yes, please.
Let's breathe. So, for anyone watching, if you can close your eyes down, if you can come into your body and be more still with us, please do that. And if you're busy and moving around, that's fine too. Just follow along. So, in this breath, I invite you to go in just how we were just talking, like with as much pleasure as possible. So, I'm going to have you rub your hands together, generating some heat, turning on the energy centers of your palm. And then place your hands where it would feel the most pleasurable. This could be heart, this could be face, belly, down into the womb space or the yoni, somewhere where connecting would feel juicy, lovely, supportive. Yeah, and I'm going to settle right down over my womb space. Now, with the next couple breaths, let's really go inward. We're going to use our breath to take us down through the heart, breathing in, down through the heart towards the belly, breathing out. Letting these breaths be nice and smooth and big, breathing into the belly. Out through the mouth, down towards the womb space. Breathing into the womb space. Big sigh out the mouth. Beautiful. Let's stay here for a couple more breaths, breathing into the womb, expanding through the front and the back. Audible exhales. Really expanding down into the womb space, into the yoni, into the pelvic bowl. Yeah. And on our next exhale, we're going to hum. Breathing in. One more like that. Biggest inhale yet. Really filling it all the way up. Big hum. Beautiful. I just let a little wiggle come through the body, opening, expanding. And before we open the eyes, just take a moment to notice what shifted, what opened, what changed, what came to life. Slowly coming back, opening the eyes.
Thank you so much.
Lovely. You're welcome.
I think for me, I, really sank into my womb, my belly, and then the giggles came up and I was like, don't laugh, like inappropriate, right? And then I was like, nah, bitch, laugh. Like you feel it, do it. And I love the idea of just letting our body make the sounds, right? Audible exhales, big moans, outrageous laughter. And I actually had this client this morning who had, she said, 3 autoimmune disorders, and her throat was completely closed up. We don't allow ourselves to take up space with sound anymore. And that was lovely. Thank you.
Yeah. Funny note. So a couple years ago, I was asked to be in a movie. My friend was
Oh my
doing
God.
Yeah, she was doing her thesis film and she was recording a short film and she asked me to star in it with her. So
Wow.
I was in it. And I've been working on opening my throat and my sound for years, long time. And so I make a lot of sound that I'm completely unaware of. I'm humming and hawing and exhaling and doing all this stuff all the time. And the sound guy from the movie was like, your girl is making a lot of like humming, like
Moni Joni.
the amount of editing he had to do for my in between takes of all the extra noises. I'm like, I can understand how for a movie that's not ideal, but I actually feel really
Really honored.
so expressed. And
Yeah.
I've worked for that. Like
Yeah.
that's been unburdened in me.
I love that. I remember working at a bar and I would, and to everyone, that's an automatic signal of upset. And I'm like, no, I'm literally regulating. Like, just let me be. I'm just moaning and sighing because I
Mhm.
can, and it feels great. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
I love that.
Well, thank you for leading us through that. I I feel like that was meant to be our foreplay and we just jumped right into bed, which is so hilarious, but it's so nice to stop doing and take that moment and just be. And that's something that I'm continually working on.
Mhm. But to your point, I actually, the idea that you can stop at any moment and ask for a reset with anyone, anywhere, is
Yeah.
actually a great skill. Even if we're doing the example of like foreplay and sex. And um, one of the biggest reclaiming things that I've done in my life is being able to pause moments, especially in sexual encounters, of
Hmm.
any kind, and ask for a reset and be
Yeah.
like, can you stop and breathe with me?
Yeah.
And can we just like reconnect that way? And that was a great example of you and I. It was like, there's all this excitement. We're hopping in. We can't
Yeah.
wait. Like there's so much excitement. Here we go. And then,
Right.
like, oh, before we drop in the next layer deeper, I actually need this.
So tell me, in what circumstance does your body call for in those encounters where you're like, actually, I need a pull out, for lack of a better term?
It's anytime I notice that I'm starting to tighten. And actually, I'll hear myself stopping my breath and I'll feel this is years of noticing, right? Where I'm like, oh, I'm starting to tighten in my chest. My movement isn't as free. Like I am starting to be hyper vigilant of their moves and what they're doing. Or I'm thinking about, okay, what's gonna happen next? And I'm micromanaging myself and I've
Okay.
lost presence. Like I'm no longer just like enjoying flowing,
Yeah.
or I'm starting to feel, that phrase like touched out, where it's like, stop touching me. Like,
Yes.
oh, I'm no longer enjoying the touch and I'm just kind of surviving the touch. And I actually spent years in relationships just surviving touch,
Yeah.
not saying anything.
What a great phrase. Like, what a surviving touch. I feel like that phrase is going to open the eyes of so many people that watch this. Like, whether you're a man and you hear a woman say this and be like, oh, she just needs to reconnect to her body, we need to re examine what's going on. It's not a shot to what's happening, it's she needs a bit more safety, maybe,
Yeah.
a bit more check in. That's lovely. I love that.
And just a backing off from sexual touch for a moment, like quote unquote sexual, where you drop back into like, hey, can you just touch me lightly and we'll breathe together? And then my system is going to drop into more safety. And then I'm going to be really open to sexual touch after that. Um, I also notice that happens if too much, like, there's like these direct sexual touches we do. It's like if you're like getting right down to business with somebody and their body's not responding well, it's like, oh, no, no, I need you to take a couple steps back and prime my energy system first.
Yeah. Yeah.
And for our energy fields, for our nervous systems to get on the same page and be communicating together,
Right.
going to need either eye contact or breath or stillness with our bodies together instead of this like immediate, oh, like touching yoni, breasts, like the whole,
Yeah.
no, excitement. And I used to not say much because I didn't want to, um, like this purity of excitement of a man that I was with, it wasn't like they were being a bad man.
Right.
It was like the puppy dog excitement. And I was like, oh, I don't want to like ruin that for them.
Right.
And this is our evolution as women. It's like, well, if you are suffering for their pleasure, it's not it.
Right. He
It
he will
doesn't,
suffer too, energetically speaking. Yeah.
right. Well, and he'll also suffer because your full expression of pleasure won't get to come out. And like him watching you fully bloom open and have ecstatic moments and really receive him fully, he won't get there
Yeah.
if you're not expressing that the current way it's going and the current touch is actually shutting you down.
Wow. Yeah, I mean I feel like this topic is so important and I almost like want so many more recordings of just talking about the act of sex because it's really a vital, spiritual, holy, like time. And it's also full of pleasure and full of boundaries and full of questions, right? And I truly wonder how many people are enjoying themselves to their fullest capacity. And I was dating someone recently that always liked to remind me like foreplay starts at dinner, right? It's like light touches, it's smiles, it's loads of eye contact. And he knew that as a woman that was going to prime, right? Like that was going to make me feel safe and emotional intimacy and like spiritual intimacy. And that was a pivotal moment for my kind of play in that area. So much power to be had and worshiped.
So much. And the more that as women we can embrace that we get to make these moments holy, sacred,
We do.
we get to set that tone
Yeah.
and we get to bring that forward to men and or anyone we're coming in contact with, any moment we're in, that we're going to bring a sacredness to it and we're going to open it as a container in that way.
Yeah.
Like that man that was letting you know that he knows. He's like, hey, all these things we're doing at dinner is about setting the tone.
Right.
And how each of us does that is different. Like some of us are much more ritualistic and spiritual about it. I love that. I want to sit across from my partner and call in the God in him and have him call in the goddess in me and like have it be explicitly said. And the more
Yeah.
out loud that it is, the more that the goddess wild Lilith in me just emerges. Like it tingles when I say that. Like when that man can say that to me and invite it and invoke
I'm
it,
your God.
well, that I'm invoking the goddess in you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I invite your goddess self to be fully in your body. I invite her here. Like that's what's happening here. We're having an exchange of the the primal in the two of us, the god and goddess in the two of us, like the more that we invoke that because our words are so powerful, our vibrations are so potent,
Yeah.
like the more that we invite that and claim it, because it's really a claiming, it's like opening that door, saying, yeah, those sacred, incredible parts of me, come on in. Like, let's go. You're allowed to flow through me in this exchange. This isn't some dirty human act that's separate.
Right.
This is a co-creation. This is a weaving of our sacred energies. And the more we take it there, the more we're going to get out of the act. And then the more that that connection is going to ripple out into our life. And that's I've seen in my life that there's times when I'm going into a sexual exchange where I can do that with someone and that's really available. And then other times where it's not. And just inside of me, there's just a silent acknowledgement of I'm the goddess, so I'm going to let her flow. And that will be enough. And then other times where you can go full into the, hey, we're going to invoke together.
Yeah. I like that differentiation because all of these practices are not black and white. It's not bring this everywhere you go. It's not like that. It's that's what embodiment is. You're like, hey body, do we feel safe calling our partner God tonight? Or do we like want to take a breath with this friend? Or will like there's so much like intuition that goes on. And the intuition is built by embodiment.
Absolutely. And that exchange with the man would never happen on the fly. That those would be conversations beforehand. And bringing in the idea of that practice and asking, hey, like, would you like to experiment with me? Like, can we try this and see what happens if we invoke that in each other?
Yeah.
Uh, And you could be, another wonderful way to do that is working with the elements. It's like, I'd like to invoke the element of fire.
Mm,
I want to see what the element of fire moves through your body. Like, what is that energy like? Fire is passion and heat and unpredictability and excitement and laughter and play. Or I'd like to invoke the element of water. And water is like smooth flowing and deep and sensual. And, it's like these different ways that we can
emotional.
invoke an emotional.
Hmm.
Yes. So there's different ways we can talk about that and different ways you can bring it in. But it's just the idea of what are you inviting to happen in that exchange? Like, do you have the power to ask for what version of you comes forward and what gets created in that time, in that sacred exchange of our energies?
So, what message would you have for people who are listening and are starting to question, wow, like, could there be more pleasure in sexual encounters with self and others? Like, is there more out there? Is this not just a physical act?
So I think if you're asking that question, it's just a curiosity. Even just hearing what we've said has now shifted an understanding,
Yeah.
right? Because the next time that you are either engaging in sexual play with yourself or someone else, there's going to be that in the back of your head of like, oh, I wonder what else is happening here. Or, oh, I wonder if I can be brave and ask someone just to take some deep breaths with me.
Yeah.
Or to say,
And
yeah,
what if women are feeling really disconnected from their pussy or their womb space? Like there's not a lot of feeling, or there's shame, tightness, hypertonic. What can they do?
my my favorite way is like that opening breath practice we did, where you start to breathe down and you really see how far down you can get because we do live in our heads a lot. And if we have trauma or numbness, like maybe as far as you can get is coming and bringing your hands like throat to chest and just breathing and bringing presence there. And then seeing if you can get yourself to make audible exhales because
Yeah, which is
that's
hard for a lot of
the
people.
edge. Yeah. And then, okay, maybe all I can do is just like a relaxed breath. And you work your way down. And you
Yeah.
can also hold upper chest and your other hand down over your pubic bone. And that starts to signal, okay, the awareness we have up here, I want to transfer that down there. So you breathe into your chest. Now, in your out breath, you're sending it to the other hand.
Okay.
So it's like this
Kind of
transfer.
like a system.
Totally. Yeah. And one of my other favorite breaths is where you alternate. So if we did that right now, we'd have hand on chest, hand down on the pubic bone or the yoni. And the first breath is into the heart. And then the next breath, we focus down at the yoni, at the pubic bone, breathing in there. And then back to the heart.
And I feel like that itself is introductory pleasure play. Like
Yeah.
without masturbation, like it's almost like if you want to feel more, if you want better sensation, like practice pleasure play with like that first would be really
Yes.
potent.
And something that was so transformative for me with my sexual energy was that I needed to start with hands off of my body in my energy field. So for other hypersensitives out there, um, I did a lot of work with the erotic blueprints that is taught by this woman named Jaya. Yeah.
Okay.
And there's these different blueprints that we have within that system. And if you are an energetic blueprint, if that's what you lead with, then you might get very turned on by not being touched physically. And that as someone enters your field, you can start to feel them before they've touched you. And then that can be the turn on the anticipation and the feeling them in your field,
Yeah.
that's real for me.
Yeah. Same.
Sometimes if I'm feeling numb, it'll be better if I'll go to the side. If I hold out and I can kind of put my hand, I'm like, oh yeah, that's the sweet spot. I'm gonna hold here and I'm gonna hold that far out down at my yoni as well. Just me doing that, my whole spine starts to move.
Mm.
Like that's the energy play my body is wanting, is breath and holding just outside. Do you get any of that?
I'm getting a block in my throat right now, so I'm just gonna pull that out.
Okay.
Hmm.
So if you work more in an energetic realm, sometimes working right off of your body can be the most pleasurable space and the spot where you're going to open.
Yeah, I'm holding my hands for those, if this ends up being just a recording, like I'm holding my hands probably about a foot in front of me. And I just notice immediately my energy fills into that. So not only am I this, woman, I can feel myself expand into that. And for me, that has been the juicy work, right? So I love this demonstration because walking around with me, like not thinking about how I'm being perceived, but walking around with my energy of turn on, right? Like
Mhm.
I'm turned on by myself, and then watching the magnetism pull people towards you, like in the gym, at a restaurant. Sometimes people will even bump into me when I'm walking around because I'm just, playing with the magnetism. But I love that idea of energetic turn on first, right? And I do think a lot of people have become so desensitized to their pleasure and their play. And in order to get those back for ourselves, because they're available to everyone, it is paying attention. It is setting aside 5 minutes to lightly touch and notice where there's numbness, or breathe into that energy body, or work with another woman, like that sacred initiation. I remember when you worked on my womb space and you saw it as a village, that changed a lot. You also saw it as a cauldron, and then I was like, a cauldron, it is. We all have cauldrons, and it's part of this cosmic, we have this cosmic soup in there, and she gets to decide because it's our creation space. And so how do we care for our creation space? I've noticed that a lot of women use their womb as a dumping ground, like
Yeah.
automatically. They're not even aware that people are dumping their own energy in there. Have you noticed stuff like that, like people absorbing energies in their womb space?
Yeah, and into the hips as well, as an extension of that sacral area. The womb, the hips, the low back, down through the legs, into the butt, like that whole
Okay.
zone. Women carry massive amounts of shame for themselves, for other people, for their partners. I mean, even so, having sex with men, they are releasing energy into your womb space,
Yep.
and then you are often carrying a lot of their emotion. And that is their way to emotionally connect very often. And a lot of pent up stuff they've been carrying around, they'll release when they have an ejaculation. And then you've become the cauldron,
A dumping ground.
the dumping ground. Um, as an energy practitioner, I immediately ask for all the emotional energy from a man I've had sex with to drain right out. I invite it immediately. That's not mine. I'm not processing any of that.
Yeah, no, thank you.
No, thank you. Um, Sometimes that's trickier. Certain relationships, we have these agreements, we're processing a lot. But if we can invite any of it to leave.
Right.
And yeah, I see a lot of this for women. I think that's why, like, the work of regularly putting down a grounding cord, releasing, especially out of the womb space, is so powerful. It can change your whole world to start to regularly pay attention to what's even going on there.
Right. Right. Can I bring, if I put my awareness there, can I tap into it, or is it numb, dark, etc.? Which is still a great place to start for anyone. But try. bringing your awareness into either of those spaces.
And if it's numb, when you start bringing awareness, there might be a lot of pain and twinges
Mm,
and this reawakening and this coming back to life.
yeah.
And I see that for a lot of women. My other work is that I'm an acupuncturist. And so I've
Hmm.
done a lot of physical unblocking in people's bodies. And sometimes they'll freak out because the symptoms start to change. It goes from numb and checked out to kind of like painful, uncomfortable. And I always say the change is good.
Right.
Waking up is the deep, that underbelly stuff we were talking about.
Purge.
Like purging, coming, bubbling to the surface, and
Hmm.
it's trying to bubble up and out.
Hmm.
And we have to be okay with discomfort so that we're not just quickly trying to suppress whatever is coming up and get rid of symptoms.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I reach that edge with women very often where they come to me with period issues, reproductive issues, sexual dysfunction that's been going on for years.
Hmm.
And as we start to uncover it, they get so uncomfortable
Hmm.
that they stop and they go get back on birth control or they go do something to shut it back down. And that's okay, like wherever
Yeah.
we're at in our expansion. But I like to bring light to this before people are in a lot of discomfort. That if
Hmm.
you start doing this type of awakening and there is those kinds of symptoms, you're not, it's not wrong, you're not wrong.
Yeah. You're not reverting.
No.
Hmm.
And sometimes it's not even from this life and it's ancestral and it's things that our mothers have been carrying in their wombs that we've been collectively carrying in the womb for many generations.
Yeah.
Really is this hero's journey path. Do you know the hero's journey? Do you know
Hmm.
that? Of
Hmm.
like you set out like, all right,
I'm
I'm
gonna
on
change
my
the
way.
world.
I'm gonna be ecstatically open and blissful as a woman. And you're all
Hmm.
excited for the journey. And then along the journey, you're gonna meet help, you're gonna meet your allies, and then you're gonna meet like dangerous, scary, in the woods, what's happening? Am I ever gonna get out alive? And then you move through that, and then you're out in a field full of flowers, and you're like, oh, that's why I'm on this journey. Like,
Hmm.
here's the breakthrough. And then, it's all the ups and downs. And
Yeah.
going back to the beginning of our conversation, it's like, can the really hard, intense parts be part of the pleasure?
Yeah.
Or are they going to scare us so much that we just want to hop back into the numbness?
Yeah. I when I started tapping into my womb space, I went through a full week of emotional discombobulation. It was spiritual PMS. Like I was putting my focus on there, bringing blood flow, cycling energy, and all of a sudden I was very angry and very sad, very angry, very sad. But I knew because I had women in my life who have been through this. They're like, just let it go. So I would set tone and space. When I would go out with my friends, like have a glass of wine, I'm like, I'm really angry today. You want to hear about it? And they're like, yeah, of course, spout off, Like having that space because the womb, the pelvic floor, and the throat, right? I mean, obviously they're connected by fascia, but that connection shows up again and again. Can you express yourself? Can you request your needs to be met? Because a lot of the times for us growing up, those answers have been no. Like, how many times did we allow touch when we didn't actually want to be touched, whether it was a hug from a family member or like a situation that got really dicey for us? And so when you tap into these spaces, being able to ask for what you need, being able to express it better out than in.
Completely. And I love that. I, I was thinking about the examples I had, like the
Hmm.
women that I watched, like what's safe, what's not. And I actually had a very embodied, expressed mother growing up.
Mm.
And she was always dancing and singing in the kitchen. And she worked out all the time. Like she was
Hmm.
in the gym, she was fit, she loved her body, and she showed it off. She wore like tight clothes and she was just like I'm feminine and I'm not hiding any of it. And I
And I'm
just,
hot. Enjoy.
and I'm hot. Um, so I have that imprint, but then there's the voices of the community
Hmm.
who a lot of other women were not okay with it. And there was a lot of commentary and Jackie as the hot mom and you know,
Mm,
it was this whole thing, but always in the back of my mind I kept saying, I can't wait to feel that level of confidence.
yeah.
I can't wait for the part of my life where I'm like, I do not care what anyone else says about it if it's
Mhm.
making me feel alive and making me feel really good.
Yeah.
And I'll say I didn't really get there until my mid 30s. I didn't.
Preach.
Yeah, I'm almost 38 now. And
Mhm.
really, like, there's been this launch since 33. I remember turning 33 and
Mhm.
looking at my boyfriend at the time and I actually told him, I said, I will not have mediocre sex with you ever again. I,
Bless you. Bless you, child.
that, him and I had already studied the erotic blueprint work, and I was
Mhm.
like, I just will not succumb to the mediocre any longer.
Mhm.
Like I've had this example my whole life and I've been shooting towards it and what's it gonna take for me to own it all the way and decide and speak it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna unpack. And I'm sure you and I could both give a million examples of the pain and the discomfort we've been in opening and
Mhm.
dealing with so much self-limitation and self-doubt. And I think sometimes we see women who are like really expressed and in the work and be like, oh, well, that's probably easy for them.
Right.
And I would say throughout my life, it's been like easy and then really hard, and then easier and then harder. And
Mhm.
I was a more expressed young child and then a very shut down in like the middle years, and then like really sexually expressed in my early 20s, and then relationships that completely shut me down.
Mhm.
And then years of shutdown, and then
Yeah.
waking up again and shutting down. And I look at this journey, I'm like, it's like this is the work.
That's the flower.
Yes,
It's the
the
bloom.
connection and the opening.
Mhm.
Tell me more.
Well, I'm listening to you and I'm like, yeah, I had a difficult time with my body ever since I was 3 years old. I remember the first time I binge and purged. And it's really fucking early for a kid, you know? And so I grew up with this eating disorder that eventually, I mean, it ravaged my mind. I was not in control of how I was feeling. I was too clairsentient, gathering up all this trauma and drama. And then I discovered the importance of coming back home inside the body. And so when I started focusing on what pleases me, like I started to get hotter. And I know that sounds so trite, but it's really not. Like for someone who hated themselves, like their body, like so much, it's just a representation, right? It's my temple. I was so at war with my temple. And when I was like, you know what? F it. Like, I'm gonna wear a crop top with my belly hanging out. I'm going to like wear red eyeliner. I'm gonna tease my hair until it reaches the sky. Like, I was exploring, like, what do I wanna look like? How do I wanna feel? And it took those moments of bravery to create that energy vortex, which then got reflected outside of me. I
Mhm.
decided that I was going to feel good about my body. I decided I was going to be hot. By the way, this is not a 24/7 thing, right? But it's like I decided that, created that energy, and then the universe said, "Here you go, girl."
Incredible.
Yeah. It's been really fun.
And it's so true. Those moments when we decide, I have moments like that all the time where I wake up in the morning and like, how am I going to feel today?
Hmm.
What's it going to look like?
Yeah.
And I can get playful with myself and even pull out my phone and find a good angle and take a selfie and see
Yes.
my beauty, and it can change my whole day.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I can be getting ready for work or my day and feeling kind of heavy. and then put on the right song while I'm in the shower, and everything shifts.
It's your tools. You,
It's,
you,
and like deciding that while I'm washing my body in the shower, I'm going to enjoy it.
yeah.
I'm going to enjoy my own touch and like be in the flow and be in the play.
Hmm.
And like that's the message I really want women to take, is that there's these moments of decision that we make all day long.
Yes.
And as you get into certain parts of your day where it's very routine, how's it going to feel? What's the energy you're bringing? Are you going to set the tone for yourself?
Hmm.
Put on some music? Are you going to put on something that makes you feel good?
Yeah.
You know,
Are you going to vacuum in lingerie or notice how the soap feels like with your eyes closed while you're washing dishes? It is literally so micro momented.
it is.
Yeah.
And there's a lot tethered into the past that prevents us from doing this.
Hmm.
And as you start to get into it, those memories will probably come up of either, watching your mother do tortured housework.
Yeah, that's probably a big imprint,
Yeah,
especially for this, those of us that are now adults, right?
yeah.
We had that demonstration.
And that's where we get into deeper work. I know you and I both take people back into moments where energy is locked up and where there is trauma, um, etherically and in the body, that is preventing the next level of pleasure. And
Hmm.
that's that's the beautiful path we get to walk together, is noticing, well, what is stopping you from enjoying that?
Yeah.
And what is the moment that's waiting to be unlocked in your past that frees you up to it right now?
Yeah.
That's when our bodies giving us pain and signals and emotion, those are our guideposts saying,
Exactly.
oh, okay, that twinge in your heart, if even if it's not this moment, if later you can go back in there and breathe into that and ask, where did this come from?
Hmm.
It starts to move, it starts to unlock. Um, and you've helped me do massive unlockings of things in the
Hmm.
past.
Hmm.
And I watch, like, the next day, my whole attitude towards a part of my life will shift.
Hmm.
And I just want to highlight what an incredible time we all live in, that we have so much access to tools at this level,
Right.
tools that our mothers definitely didn't have access to. It wasn't like this.
Right.
Like what we know now, what we can dig into, how quickly we can shift our state and what's available to us is way more expanded.
Right.
And as an embodiment teacher and as a healer, I'm like, oh my gosh. And it doesn't just happen in single sessions. It's like when we get together as a group of women, and I hold women's circles regularly, and I watch a whole group of women shift around one woman sharing her story.
Yeah.
And
Like a
we heal,
vortex.
it's like we heal it for one person, and then it just, yeah, through that vortex, it shifts and can change everyone there.
So true. I love that you have a community around you and have that offering of seeing people live, like doing both, like having a virtual space and a live space is very lucky. Very, I know you've actually built that community over many years too. So that's really special.
Yeah, it's so needed. We need so
Yeah.
much more of it.
Mm-hmm.
I've got my eye on lots of different types of community, and we really need men and women together
Absolutely.
talking about these things, practicing touch, practicing energy exchange.
I
Like
love that.
that is our next frontier, is,
Sign me up.
yeah, inviting the men into the conversation.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that that is so important. And I know that you are skilled in that work as well, skilled in working with men and holding space for couples and just women. And your work changes lives. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for being here. I'm wondering if you can let people know how to work with you. Like, where can they contact you?
Yes. So there's a new community getting built right now called Juicy Jaya.
Hmm.
And that's where a lot of these offerings are going to be, especially couples work and priestess work for women, which includes everything we talked about. And I do coaching with just men as well
Okay.
to really take them into, their own bodies and their own evolutionary work, which is gorgeous. That's I watching men evolve and grow into the men that we desire them to be is some of the most beautiful things I've ever seen.
I love
They
that.
have so much that they want to open and share with the world.
Yeah. Yeah.
And just as much as we need safe spaces as women, the men need safe spaces to
Right.
explore and open. So, um, juicejaya.com is
Okay.
on its way. Heart Activation Project is
Hmm.
my current Instagram. That's my current business for all of the spiritual healing, acupuncture, and energetics.
Hmm.
The two places you can find me on Instagram, both Juicy Jaya and Heart Activation Project.
Perfect. Yeah, that's how I ended up booking with you was through the Heart Activation Project Instagram, and we're also excited for Juicy Jaya to launch very shortly. So when it does, we'll add that link to this episode.
Beautiful.
Thank you so much, Jackie, for being
Oh,
here. What a blessing to tap into your wisdom and your story and like your beautiful mess. Like that's how I see it. You're just like a ray of sunshine, right? And I think there's some really empowering messages here for people to kind of tap into their enjoyment, their pleasure, their power a bit more. So thank you.
oh, such a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Okay. Well, until next time, everyone, we'll see you later.